Friends, a very warm welcome to the new exciting episode of Beyond Success Unleash the New You video podcast series, where we explore how to break free from limitations, how to reconnect with our true selves, and create a life full of purpose and impact. I'm your friendly host, Ajai Kumar. I'm thrilled to welcome Golo Pilz, a Raj Yoga meditation practitioner since 1984 and a leader in renewable energy at Brahma Kumaris headquartered in Mount Abu, India. Very, very warm welcome to you, Golo.
Thanks, Ajay, very much.
So, just for the benefit of the audience, you've been actually regularly contributing to the United Nations Climate Conference. You've been advocating for some very interesting concepts around ethical and value based solutions so that we can all jointly build a more sustainable and a greener future for all ourselves. How exciting is that journey for you?
Well, it's very exciting because when I was a youngster, I always wanted to travel the world, and then when I joined the Brahma Kumaris, the sister who taught me the meditation course, she told me, you have to come every day to meditation to build step by step your stage and
All right.
progress regular. And I thought, oh my God, now I'm doomed. I have to come every day to the center and meditate. And then suddenly I met a friend who was traveling and giving some lectures. And I
All
thought,
right.
wow, you're traveling and giving lectures. And he said, yes, I bought a ticket around the world. And that was 1985. And guess 1986, I had a ticket around the world. And
Wow.
now I traveled a lot. And actually, it's quite a magic that I'm in USA because lately I'm a bit reluctant to travel because it became quite stressful. The flights, the borders, the visas,
Right.
the paperwork, and all that. So by drama and by circumstances and by sheer luck, I landed here in Raleigh today, and I'm with you on this podcast.
No, very happy to have you with us. And I'm sure all of us are going to get a lot of nuggets of learning, discussing with you. And for the benefit of the audience, again, Golo has actually traveled 75 countries, right?
Yeah.
75 countries. So somebody is actually been supporting the airline industry by all the travel. But more of that as we move along. Uh, you mentioned that you've actually been with the Raj Yoga meditation since 1984, right? And now you based out of the headquarters of Brahma Kumaris in Mount Abu, India. Can you share your journey with meditation, spirituality? How did it all got connected with this sustainability and the renewable energy?
Well, I joined Brahma Kumaris 84 and came first time 1985 to the headquarter in Mount Abu in Rajasthan.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that India has an incredible potential of solar energy. The sun is shining as much as you can imagine.
Right, right.
And on the other hand, we had a big deal of deforestation going on. Every day you saw the ladies coming out of the forest with a headload of firewood.
Mm-hmm.
And Rajasthan, where the headquarter is quite a desert state, and deforestation is a big problem. So I thought, why not to introduce solar energy, renewable energy, and sort of reduce a little bit the dependency of the institution, but also the people from the fuels, which primary fuel, which at that time was firewood. And that's how the idea was born. And I brought some small electrical vehicle, which
Mm-hmm.
was I put in the courtyard. It was running with a solar cell and a small battery, and it was moving around. And
How long
everybody's
back was that? Like
it's 35 years.
35. That would have been some sight to actually watch back in India, the solar powered
Yes,
vehicle
that
moving
was.
around.
They were all looking and saw that little electric car going around. They said, "Oh, solar energy is very good." And then I brought some solar cells, and then we did a first research project with the German government. And then when it all started, then the ball got rolling.
Very nice, very nice. So, meditation, spirituality, sustainability, and renewable energy all coming together. And if you were to define success in your own terms related to this context, how would you typically say, what would you make you feel that you feel being successful over here?
Well, as a spiritual person, I define my success in spiritual terms. I would like to have a stable stage. I love to be resting mentally in peace and
Mm-hmm.
tranquility
Mm-hmm.
and in stillness and love and compassion. So these are the indicators for me of success. And of course, there are also some indicators what you do on the outside world with your job, or how much successful you are in your profession, or how much income you have. These are these are the modern indicators.
Right.
And let's say on the level of doing clean energy projects, we have been fairly successful in the Brahma Kumaris. We started very modest and very small, and now we are the biggest institutional user of solar energy in India.
Mhm.
And we have 5,000 meditation centers, and we introduced a green policy for them. And now almost 1,000 meditation centers have installed a solar system running on photovoltaic and battery. And in our headquarters, we have done plenty of research and demonstration projects with the German government, with the Indian government. And we're getting thousands and thousands of visitors per year who would like to see our renewable energy park, I can say, with biogas plant, thermal power station, solar cooking, solar photovoltaic. And right now we're installing a 700 kilowatt PV system, which will be able to run our entire campus in Gyan Sarovar and produce around 2,000 units electricity per day. We have a huge lithium battery bank of 750 kilowatt hours, a big inverter of 680 kilowatt hours, and we should be able in 2-3 months to sort of move the big main switch from fossil fuel to clean technology and run the whole campus environmental friendly. So hopefully in 3 months next year, when you come to our campus, it will be running on solar energy.
I definitely look forward to making a visit and seeing this project live in action. I'm sure it'll be like a huge personal milestone for you also. You talked about collaboration with the German government and Indian government. I'm presuming it would have come with its own baggage of challenges, for a lack of a better word, and some more pointers around that challenges. How did you overcome that?
Well, when you go in clean technology, you're dealing with a lot of challenges. One is the mindset of the people.
Mm-hmm.
It's a new thing, and anything which is new needs a change in awareness
Right.
and in thinking and in the action.
Right.
So the mindset has to change, and people don't like to change the mindset. They stick rather with the things they know, in which they have learned as youngsters, and change is always a bit uncomfortable. So you deal with the mindset of the people when you bring some new technology. Then also you deal with different technological levels. So in the beginning, when I brought stuff, let's say from Germany, high-tech solar plates and inverters and that stuff, it was not really available in India.
Mm-hmm.
Most of that stuff came from foreign, and you had to bring it in. And then the question came of maintenance and of course installation, and the whole periphery was had to be adapted towards that. Then of course so that's a challenge. And then of course it's also about it boils down actually always to money and funding, and that is always the biggest hurdle and the biggest challenge. Luckily, we got in contact with the German government, and they sort of supported initially our projects. We did a first small project called Wind and Solar for Rural Application, where we installed a small wind generator and a small photovoltaic power plant. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
2 kilowatt, and the wind generator was 300 watt. And we combined it in a controller, and then did a battery bank. We made a research report of 60 pages at the end of the project. The government was satisfied. The project was running successful. And from there onwards, we were able to secure funding from the German government, but also from the Indian Ministry of New and Renewable Energy Sources in New Delhi. And it became quite a success story. Later on, we became a recognized research center. And then slowly we went also in bigger projects, and then from thousands of dollars we went into $100,000 project, and even later then in millions of dollars project.
Right. And you mentioned thousands of visitors coming in, so I'm presuming they are visiting to learn as to how did you do that, and they can take the best practices back to their own sphere of life and implement them.
Well, one aspect of this project is to raise the awareness of the people.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have various ways and means how we do that. One is we're going to the UN conferences. We have a very comprehensive webpage, but we also network with other organizations in India, with the IITs, the Indian Institute of Technology. Right now we have a research project on a new vanadium battery. Then we are also trying to educate the visitors who come to our campus and show them, you see, there is solar energy generating that power, and you see here's the load side, and sometimes they're astonished because we can power quite a lot of gadgets. I mean, we have a megawatt plant, so we can sometimes power our whole campus with the output of the turbine.
Right.
So people are impressed, and that has a profound impact on them. And they then start thinking, okay, what can I do on a personal level? How are my chances? How can I contribute to a better world by using clean technology? So it's a win-win situation.
Mm-hmm.
And people then take that experience, that knowledge, that understanding to their home place, to their city, to their community. And then we hope to get the ball rolling, and they start implementing then also. So it's a effect rolling out from the headquarters into many areas.
Correct. So let's take a step back, Gul. We got into the solutioning part and some of the great projects you've been involved with. But prior to that, just to get a sense of the quantum of this problem, how big is this problem, and how, if very broad level in terms of a timeline horizon where you see this really creating impact, is it we are seeing it next few years for our next generation? Something onto that really will be helpful.
You see, right now we're in a time of transition,
Mm-hmm.
and people are noticing that the world or the environment, which has been stable for such a long time, suddenly changes at a very fast speed.
Right.
We hear about climate change.
Mm-hmm.
We hear about loss of biodiversity. We see also economic upheavals, and we see a lot of tension and conflicts in the world on the rise.
Right.
So people are wondering actually what's going on and what's happening. And if we look in climate change, for example, Brahma Kumaris has an environmental initiative. We go since 20 years to the UN climate conferences, and I have the luck and the opportunity almost every year to visit in Germany the leading climate research institute in Potsdam, which is advising the German government also on climate change, and has literally thousands of scientists around the world collecting all the data of the change. They measure the ice fields, they have the buoys, and measure the temperature in the ocean.
Right.
And they are networking with all other research institutes around the world. And so they get a very good overview of what's happening in terms of climate change. In addition, they have a supercomputer. And so they feed all the data in the supercomputer, and they are modeling our weather. So they know what's happening at the moment, but they can also predict fairly accurate now what happens in the next couple of years. And if we continue as we are, what will be the outcome in 2-3 years? If we change our lifestyle, they have different models of change. How much we have to change to come to a moderate climate change. So they know pretty fairly well what is in the near future and in the middle future also. So the outlook at the moment is pretty grim. The reason is our emissions, carbon emissions, are pretty high. We have crossed now 420 million parts per million of in the atmosphere of CO2. And that means that our temperature this year has crossed approximately 1.6 degrees above the pre-industrial level, which means that the tipping points in climate, which are the major players controlling our climate, they all are being affected now. And that's why we have this weird weather, which we're seeing everywhere: storms, droughts, hurricanes, erosion of coastal erosion, rising seawater levels, and so on and so on. And we can say that we are already in the midst of a pretty dramatic climate change, which is already affecting everybody of us. And the economic damage so far per year is estimated to be in the range of $500 billion.
That's pretty huge. And when you're talking about these things, actually, way back in 2015, I've been writing blogs, and I wrote a blog about saying that the peaceful coexistence of humans with nature. And I personally believe nature is always supreme. And when you're talking about, let's take a hypothetical situation. Let's presume all the ice in Antarctica, Arctic zone, etc., everything melts down. Roughly, how much is the water level going to rise?
This has been pretty accurately calculated. So they estimate if all ice bodies melting Arctic, Antarctic, including all the glaciers, they talk about 50 to 60 meters seawater level rise.
50 to 60 meters. Guys, are you listening? What does it mean for all the coastal cities and all the countries and everything? Are they going to all get washed away?
Yeah, indeed. It's pretty dramatic. I think Google Maps has a function somewhere. You can actually click the seawater level. You can say plus 5 meters, plus 10 meters, plus 20 meters, and it shows you where's the new coastline. And we have seen in the past that the coastline is not always there where it's right now. When the seawater levels were higher, the coastline was much more land in. And when the seawater level was lower, it was further out in the ocean. So coastline is not 100% fixed. And you can see already now that there is increased erosion globally at many coastal areas.
Right.
And already villages have to shift, houses have to be shifted. And I think I read an article in Florida, in certain areas, houses which are at the waterfront, they are losing their value because it became quite clear that with the rising seawater level and the increased number of storms, these properties are maybe not surviving the future, and so the prices are going down.
Yeah, prices are going down, but insurance costs obviously will skyrocket, or maybe some of the insurance companies say, hey, we don't want to even insure these properties.
There was an interview about 3 weeks ago of the chairman of Allianz, and he said, we are coming now to the breaking point where we as an insurance company cannot insure any longer certain environmental risks. He was talking about due to climate change. We cannot raise the premium any further. And the losses and the possible damages are so high that we will be unable to cover them. And they say if the insurance company is unable to cover the risk of climate change, he says it's a warning signal for everybody, especially also for industry, because it will make business very unpredictable. So this came from big business, came the big warning. So everybody should listen, what might be in the pipeline in the next coming of years.
And we've all been experiencing a little bit of that in the past several years. And I'm sure everybody who's listening is thinking on similar lines as to what can be done, how to prevent this, and how can we take a better go forward steps onto this so that we bring it under control. But building on to the same topic which is there, what I'm thinking is, see, you've been collaborating with United Nations. You've been a key party in terms of bringing all the different parts of the world together and trying to come to a consensus which is there, saying that, hey, what is the best way for us to move forward as humanity? Now, bringing all these diverse cultures together, diverse countries together, a lot of politics involved, a lot of other dynamisms on business side involved for them. What are the most significant lessons you might have learned about how do you foster global cooperation and sustainability?
Well, there are 196 countries coming to the UN climate conference, and it's as diverse as you can imagine. And of course, also we have lobby groups there. Last year in Baku, there was a huge lobby group of the fossil fuel industry, as you can imagine. But interestingly, there was a huge lobby group also of the international banks. There were almost all the CEO of the biggest banks in the world. They came with big delegations. And so it was quite interesting that the big money and big business is present also at the climate conference, because the decisions which are being taken at the climate conference, of course, have an impact also on business opportunities and on the course of action the companies have to take. Of course, we also see interests of certain lobby groups not to change the current paradigm, the current fossil fuel utilization, the rate of fossil fuel involvement in our power generation. Then on the other side, we have groups which are very much interested. For example, all these Pacific islands, they are desperately, like Solomon Islands, they're desperately saying, there's even a lobby group of the small islands. They're desperately asking the world for action because some of these islands already had to be evacuated because of seawater level rise. It is penetrating into their sweetwater wells, and they don't get any more drinking water on these islands, and they simply had to be evacuated. So there are already very, very practical victims of climate change. And those countries which are most vulnerable, they form also lobby groups, and they are lobbying, of course, for a very advanced climate legislation in order to deal with climate change in the most efficient way. So you have a whole bandwidth of interests, and 2, 3, 4,000 people from the media. So you can imagine.
Wow.
I call it always the big climate circus, and you get a cacophony of information from different lobby groups. Nuclear industry is also there. There is they make programs nuclear for climate change, So you have all sorts of industries, groups, and a whole range of information is available for you, and you have to navigate a little bit this overload of information and make sense out of all that what comes to you, and sort of find a pathway to navigate it and to stay actually sane in your mind, because it's pretty overwhelming.
I could only imagine. You've been there in thick of action, and coming from you, I'm sure there's so many moving pieces over there. But for a layman, maybe, what does it typically mean when you have banking representation, all the CEOs of big bank? What is in it for them to be there?
Well, see, in the last climate conference in Baku, it was all about who will pay for the damage of climate change. And you have to see that the majority of the emissions which are in the atmosphere and causing climate change are due to the industrialization of the Western world. For example, it is USA, Canada, Europe, Japan, Australia, which have caused we have created the majority of CO2 emissions, which are circulating and causing subsequently the climate change. So the third world rightly says, India, also China, they are not really responsible for the climate change. They now became big contributor, but the historical amount of CO2 has come from the developed Western world. It's our industrialization, it's our wealth, which is built on the CO2 emissions, which are causing the damage. So the developing world, the third world, rightly is asking, hey, we have a lot of damage. Our harvest, our farmers, our cattle, our trees are damaged, our coastal areas are damaged. So please pay for the damage because you have caused it. Secondly, they say, please also give extra money to us and help us to pay for the transition from fossil fuel-based industry and power generation to a clean power generation and to a more circular economy. So in Baku, scientists were calculating, and they estimated the damage to $500 billion per year, and the cost to the transition also to 500 billion. So they were asking for 1 to 1.3 trillion dollar funds to be transferred from the rich Western nations to the developing world per year, annual. So of course, this is a lot of money. And so when a lot of money is at stake, the banks are involved, and of course they were there, and the fossil fuel industry was there, and of course all environmental minister, prime ministers, everybody from A to Z was there, because a lot is on stake. And so you can imagine there was a lot of lobbying going on, a lot of discussion going on, also young people, demonstrations, NGOs, scientists, institutes, politics, business. And at the end, the conference agreed on approximately $300 billion to be transferred yearly. And this not always in form of grants. Often it is a loan. So now the developing nations, the third world, is literally bankrupt. They're already in a big way in debt with the World Bank and wherever. Governments don't have much of financial maneuvering available to them. And so there was a bit of an outcry, rightly so, and they said, hello, you are not fulfilling your historical responsibility. You're not standing and helping us. You're just hiding behind. And the West said, okay, we'll give you a little bit of money, not always as a loan. It's not always as a grant. It might be also a loan. And we help you a little bit here and a little bit there. But the third world and majority of scientists agree that it is very late, and it's not enough to deal with the sheer size of the problem we are facing right now.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So you partially addressed my question, which was coming in my mind, but I'll go ahead and ask that. What was I can make a very crude analogy with our corporate environment where I come from, right? So we as leaders, one of our big charter is that when you're having a group meeting, you'll always find people who are fairly extrovert, or maybe they'll speak their voice out, and but there'll be some other who are very quiet and their voice can get submerged. Now, in a scenario like this, where you have such a diverse kind of representation, there are people who come from the developed nations who actually cause this majority of the impact, and there are developing nations of the third world we're talking about. Now, there will be these big daddies. How do you ensure in a forum like that that the voice of everybody is heard, and then you're able to follow through it nicely?
This is a good question. See, there are powerful players and there are less powerful players.
All right.
And the power is often linked to your economic power or your military power, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So the big nations, of course, they are organized in blocks. The developing nations are organized in blocks. And of course, it's all about hearing our position and following our position.
Right.
And in UN, everybody has one vote. And the process of finding a solution is very complex, and as far as I understand, the decision at the UN conference has to be taken unanimously. Means everybody has to agree. If one country doesn't agree and says we won't sign the agreement, the conference literally cannot move forward. So you can imagine how complicated it is, because you have to find a compromise.
Right.
Everybody's ready to sign it. Now, if you say, okay, science is telling us we have to phase out fossil fuels,
Right.
then Saudi Arabia, for example, says, that's a bit too strong. Our economy depends to 80% on the revenue from oil, from our oil sales.
Correct.
We will not sign this. This is too strong for us. Or whoever has interest. There is the mining industry. Still, we're using coal as a primary fuel for power generation worldwide. So there are a lot of interests, and a lot of countries are sort of impacted by climate change in a different way. For example, in Russia, big areas will come out of permafrost. So Russia is being impacted in a bad way, but they also win to some extent arable land, which was under permafrost. And every year, what I understand, the permafrost is moving 10 kilometers to the north. So every year, a stretch of 10-kilometer land comes out of the permanent frost, and after some time becomes maybe arable. So some countries, they might benefit or not even benefit, but they are not hit as hard, and they have some benefits included, while other countries like India, for example, are impacted very severely by climate change. We have right now a heat wave in India, started already in January, which was actually in the middle of winter. And they expect this to be the hottest summer in India. And last year, when I was in New Delhi, the temperature went up to 52 point something, and it was the absolutely temperature record broken and measured in India. And you can imagine, what are you doing if it's outside the temperature like in the Death Valley? You need air conditioned. You have to hide from the heat. You have to protect yourself. But people who are poor, they cannot afford air conditioning. They cannot even afford a fan. So the most vulnerable, the children, the women, the elderly, they're really affected. It can be life-threatening. So you have different interests.
Right.
Everybody has to agree. And it's not easy to find that compromise. And often the compromise is watered down, and watered down. But on the other side, we have no other international mechanism right now to deal with this global crisis.
Gotcha. So if I were to summarize what I heard from you, is what you're telling me is, for you to control something like this in your corporate environment is much simpler than to do it over here. The dynamisms are so immense and diverse over here, so I completely get that. Now, shifting gears, you talk of some very unique concepts about saying that how can ethical value-based solutions really help address that problem. Would you care to elaborate a little bit on that?
It's quite an interesting question, because when we came first to joined the climate conference in 2009, I think it was in Copenhagen. I think this was COP 16 or something like that. climate conference of parties. That means we sort of promoted inner transformation, connecting to values, recalibrate your moral compass so you act well, and all these kind of things.
Right.
People came to us and said, what are you funny yogis doing here? We just need technology and strategy and funds. And we have all of that. It was the arrogance of industry, science, and politics. It says we have money, we have technology, we have the funds, we'll fix it.
Right.
And so we said, okay, let's fix it. And that was the time Obama was there, Gordon Brown was there, Merkel was there. So all the major powerful, the Chinese president was, all the powerful players were there. They all said, we'll fix it. Now, 20 years later, 18 years later, the same people come to us and say, who please teach us meditation, because we are worried and we have so much anxiety and we are also depressed. And they tell us money is not fixing the climate change. Strategy is not fixing the climate change. We had thousands of different strategies, and technology is also not fixing the climate problem. And that's quite interesting. And the people come to us and they say, we know everything. We know also what has to be done. The money is also there, but unfortunately going in different areas right now. And we're not doing it. So something really blocks us, something really stops us. And they come to us and say, teach me meditation in order to strengthen my mindset, in order to experience peace and calmness and come out of these worries and come out of that depression because of that observation of that process and that inability, it seems, of humanity to steer against the crisis.
Got you. So a lot of things tangentially come out of what you just said, right? So, but let me build on to one or two areas. Area number one, which comes to my mind, is that sometimes technology itself could be a problem creator. We use generative AI in such a big way, but if you look at the impact it is creating onto the ecosystem, is humongous. So sometimes technology itself, which you initially looking at a solution, could be the problem creator. The second area, which is question as a layman coming to mind, right? When you talk about spirituality, meditation, typically the concept for all of us would be that you get a better feeling of yourself, you are more relaxed. But that's individual, which is there. How does this collective well-being get related to all the things which we've been talking about, your renewable energy, sustainable environment, greener world?
Well, it becomes obvious that we have to change our mindset, the way how we think, and we have to change also the awareness, the perception of climate change. And we have to understand it is a huge crisis which is in front of us. So huge crisis always is a chance for change, and it is a chance for transformation. So we try to highlight and sort of teach people, if you change on the inside, and for example, you connect to your inner goodness, you connect to love and compassion, you love yourself, and then you love also the world. You love animals, you love nature, you become compassionate with everything, you start taking care. And the moment you feel responsibility for your actions and also for the impact of the things you buy, how you live, and all these kind of things, you initiate the process of change. And then slowly, with the help of meditation, you are changing the inner program of, I have to get this, I have to get this, I have to get this, I have to do this, into a more compassionate way of living. And you think, okay, I can share some of my stuff and help people which are in need. And then also you start thinking, okay, I'm responsible. I might not buy now this kind of car. I might buy an electrical vehicle, for example, or I may put the extra money I have not into a fun holiday in the Bahamas. I say, let's put a solar system on rooftop. And you become more selective with your personal investments, but also with your actions and with the preferences you have, which are then ultimately more beneficial for the world, for the nature, and for your personal carbon footprint.
Very interesting, very interesting. And I do see the power of what you're just talking, right? Each one of us become conscious about first part, like you were saying earlier, right? Awareness part of it. So we become aware of it, then we consciously take that call that okay, we need to create that impact. You make those small, small changes in your personal day-to-day life, which will have collectively a huge impact. One other question comes as a follow through to this is that unless the biggies again comes over there, like the impact which each individual house, even if you put together, compared to let's say the business dynamism, like you quote an example, let's say in Middle East, they have fossil, let's say they have fuel, one of the biggest source of revenue generation. Over there, the appreciation to come just because you're doing minor changes at home, would it be able to compensate that, or does it need that spirituality needs to get into the mindset of people over there who are in power and they realize and make those big decisions which are there? Anything on that?
Um, of course, what you do with your personal life has a certain impact, but we should not underestimate the power of a good example. So if you change your lifestyle and you open your heart to your inner goodness, you have an impact which goes much beyond only that other people see what you're doing, which is anyhow good, but
Right.
you also create a positive, let's say, a positive vibration and energy field of gratitude and of love for the world, which travels beyond time and space and impacts everybody. This is one of the concepts of spirituality, that
Right.
the positive mindset has a tremendous impact into the world, into the general atmosphere, and people can feel that and they will be inspired in that. But of course, for practical steps in the world, you have to inspire our business leaders, our big companies,
Right.
and our politicians. And interestingly, recently I read a study in America, which is a country with the highest climate deniers.
Climate deniers.
Climate
I
deniers
like that phrase.
in the world. A majority of people is worried about climate change, and the majority of people is advocating much stronger, a much stronger legal governmental activity to curb climate change, to deal with the situation. So the people are actually in favor for climate action. And it's only a question of time that our company leaders, our politicians will really fully wake up. We get a couple of more Katrinas. We get a couple of more California wildfires. We get a couple of more natural disasters on a large scale, and everybody will say, oh my God, oh my God. The issue is the longer we wait now to deal with the situation, the more rough, tough our pathway will become. That's where science comes in. They are pretty clear now. How is the future scenarios? They all worked it out. We can cut emissions, come down to net zero. It's called net zero. Reduce our emissions so we are not adding more emissions into the atmosphere. It's called net zero.
All right.
And all the countries have targets which they announce at the United Nations conference. That's part of the Paris Agreement. They're called NDC, National Determined Contribution. So all the countries have targets which they sort of announce and say that's when we want to reach net zero. And the European Union, for example, I think 2050, and India is 2070. They want to reach net
zero.
Net zero. So all these targets are there. The problem is that sometimes the announcement of the target and reality, they're not matching it, because it's more complex than initially thought, and it costs money. And again, it costs a shift in mindset. And this takes time. Sometimes the mindset shift takes time, a whole generation.
Absolutely.
But we don't have that much of time. And it's dawning to our leaders now that they really have to change the course of action in a quite dramatic way.
Right.
Problem a little bit in democracies is you cannot really drastically change the course of action, because the next election you will be not re-elected again. So we'll have to see how the next years are sort of evolving, how climate change will also sort of practically change our environment, our
Right, right.
atmosphere, how much humanity is ready to suffer and to pay for climate change. And when that moment comes where everybody agrees, okay, now we have to really do it and we have to drastically change lifestyle.
Gotcha, gotcha. Now, these are very interesting pointers which you're raising. And the book which I wrote on Beyond Success, Unleash the New You, I have actually one chapter dedicated only on power of nature. And I talk about concepts like, and I'm sure all of them are familiar to you, be it Shinrin Yoku, which is the Japanese concept of forest bathing. You talk about Ubuntu, which is in Africa. It talks about concepts of we are because as a team together. So I am because we are. And then you talk of the Hinduism, which talks of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, that the entire world is one. We are all part of this. So, with these concepts coming across, you talking about all this sustainability, bringing ethical values with spirituality, meditation coming to play. Are there any specific practices you do to really keep yourself connected with nature?
I would like to just comment what you said. In
Uh-huh.
the UN conference, since a couple of years, we have a very strong interfaith movement.
Uh-huh.
And Brahma Kumaris was also part of the initiation of the introduction of the interfaith at the UN conference. And the world community now, especially negotiators, are realizing that there's a huge potential. 80% of the world population follows one or the other religion.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And the late Pope Francis was a friend of environment, and he initiated Laudatio Si, which is a very pro-environmental encyclica of the Pope, saying that we should live in harmony with nature,
Right.
and pointing the finger to the politicians and to the big industry to act, which they of course didn't like that much, but nevertheless, he was an advocate for nature.
Right.
And he was an advocate for the third world. And he says, hey, you have to act now because we're running out of time. So interfaith has become a big thing in the UN conference. And the last two conferences, there has been a interfaith pavilion. And interestingly, Brahma Kumaris has been asked to conduct the meditation morning and evening to sort of create loving and compassionate vibration to inspire the process, the negotiation process, to go in the right direction. So morning and evening we conduct meditation. It's basically like a prayer, and we all know that our thoughts can have a tremendous impact into the world. So we hope that the interfaith process is also a beginning of the majority of the world population to wake up and to unite, to create one voice. We would like to create a beautiful future on this planet, and therefore we have to change our lifestyle. We have to wake up what means living in harmony, and what means destroying our world at a high speed. And I think we're in the middle of this process where all sorts of information developments are all coming together, and it's a very fluid situation right now. And we have to see how the next years are sort of coming into practice. And we meditators, we are seeing the situation of the world, and we have special meditation of compassion and love and send power and peace to the hotspots in the world, in terms of send love and compassion to the negotiators, send to the politicians, send also to the hotspots of the world where there is conflict and upheaval, and sort of serve a solution, find a solution from a spiritual perspective.
Right. Gotcha. So when we look at nature, Golo, you look at there's so much to learn. You look at the trees, right? I take a principle of that they teach us how to grow both upwards, above the ground, as well as below the ground, right? So you have your roots going down below, which keep you firm grounded, and then you have branches which are in the process of giving to the humanity and to all living beings across. Then similarly, resilience, you learn that from nature in a big way as to how to, so many things keep coming, going, but how you keep yourself resilient to this entire thing. Now, all the nuggets which you shared, if you were to take some typical steps, and you kind of touched upon some of them earlier, for people like us who are listening to the show right now, if we were to make few changes in ourselves, learning from nature, learning from the inputs which you're giving across, how we can contribute and align their personal growth with sustainability?
Well, I would be very happy if awareness towards the problems we're facing right now is growing. People understand we're in the midst of, the science calls it now a poly crisis,
Hmm.
environment, biodiversity, conflicts,
Hmm.
economics, also crisis. We understand that we are touching the boundaries of the planet Earth, and that they understand that the solution lies in an inner transformation, that we adopt love and compassion, that we start meditating on a regular basis and connect ourselves to the divine, to the light, and charging ourselves with love, peace, and power to bring transformation in our personal actions, but also become an example, an inspiration for others to change. And I read once in a book, I'm not sure if it's 100% right,
Hmm.
how revolutions are happening. And they said only 2% of the population, they wake up to a new idea. They inspire another 15% of the population. And then when they are inspired, the situation flips. So we need a new paradigm, a paradigm not of greed and competition, but a paradigm of love and sharing. And therefore, we all have to change on the inside and become an
Right.
example.
Right.
Once we do that, energy spreads out, but good actions also spread out. And that's what we need. We need good actions and we need good energy, good vibrations in the world. And I think meditation is one of the most powerful tools which has been given to us, yoga. And science, by the way, agree. They've done so much research into meditation, and they find if you meditate regular, you sort of become socially more embedded. You
Right.
love yourself, you love nature, you share. Your health is improving, relaxation is improving, but you're also able to change your subconscious programming, your habits, and your awareness. And that is fantastic. They even found out that your neuronal flexibility is increasing and you will be open for new ideas and for new concepts. And we have to think outside of the box in order to solve these problems, these crises which we're seeing right now.
No, very nice. I'm sure all of us who are listening will take a leaf or two from here and try to at least start meditating. And it completely aligns with that concept which I've been probing in my book about beyond success, as to don't go just by the convoluted definitions by the society, how much money you have, what wealth, power, title, designation, what kind of bungalow, car you're driving, etc. There's so much more than that. And that's where it fits in. When you do this meditation, so many things come across. Okay, this brings us to the end of the session, right? And we have a last, a fun pact, which we call rapid fire questions. So you're allowed only to answer it with a one word or a one line.
Oh, wow.
And knowing that your native country happens to be Germany, and then for the last more than 3 decades or so, right? You're in India, right? So your first question is India versus Germany.
Uh, India is love and compassion. Germany is very straightforward.
Okay, got you. You talk so much about nature and everything. Amongst all the natural elements, be it earth, water, fire, space, which is your favorite?
I love the ocean.
You love the ocean, so
I'm a,
water.
yeah. I was when I was young. I was in swimming competition. I was in diving, and I'm a still when I have the chance, I do free diving. I go with the flippers down.
Really?
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
Fantastic. Oh,
It's an underwater. It's tranquility, and if you're in front of a reef,
right.
the colors
Amazing.
and the colorful fish, and that's just like it's. I mean, I just love it. What
Right,
else I
right,
say?
right, right, right. I love snorkeling as well and
Yes,
get a feel of
it's
it.
my favorite snorkeling actually.
Yeah, yeah.
I have also a sailing license, and I like to sail with a boat on the ocean. It's fantastic.
Wow. We'll talk more about it. Okay, next question for you. One word that describes your approach to sustainability.
One word that describes my approach to sustainability. Maybe responsibility.
Responsibility,
Feeling res-
accountability,
Feeling
feel
responsible and
responsible.
accountable. Yeah. Mhm.
Very nice, very nice. Out of all the 75 countries, one country which inspires you the most.
They all inspire me. Even I'm now in America. Even
Right.
America inspires me.
Even America, that's something
Even
to probe
America.
separately for sure.
From an environmental point of view, you know what I mean.
Right.
At the moment, America is sort of going a bit in the different direction, in the opposite direction.
Right.
And America is also the country with a very high personal footprint. But still, I'm here and I'm inspired by the people. I'm inspired by the greatness of the country.
Right.
And the potential which is here, the potential to innovate and to do something in the right direction. America is a very powerful country and has a lot of abilities, a lot of impact into the whole world. So I'm inspired by that.
Gotcha. Morning meditation versus evening reflection.
I'm trying to make my early morning meditation as powerful as the evening. And I would say give blessings to the world.
Very nice. Okay. One renewable energy source you're most excited about?
I love solar cooking boxes.
Solar cooking boxes.
They're very, very simple. It's just a box with a bit of glass in front. You put your pot inside, it's painted black. You put your food inside, put it outside in the sun. After 2 hours, it's cooked. It's fantastic. It's super cheap, super simple, no moving parts. If you take care of it, the lifespan is 20, 30, 40 years.
Wow.
And it cooks your food. We make even bread, cake, noodles, whatever you want, you can do in the solar cooking box, and it's cheap. It's maybe in US you may get $200, and you have so much beautiful sunshine. You save a lot of gas or electricity,
Right.
and the taste of the food is also quite good because it's a rather slow cooking process. So people say when they taste the solar cooked food, they say, oh, this has a real deep, good food. And in India, Surya is also a deity.
Right.
So to cook with the power of the deity, everybody loves it.
So listeners, you got your another advice, which is there. Solar cooking. That's another thing too for all of us.
Solar cooking box.
Solar cooking box.
You just Google it and you will find it. And it should be available in America, probably in Amazon also.
Sure, we're going to check out. One person or a book or a podcast or a movie which has inspired you the most?
Oh, that's a difficult question. One book, one podcast. Oh, I'm blank. I have to pass that question.
Oh, really? Okay. Okay, if you could have one superpower and which you believe could really help the planet in the cause, what could that superpower be you like to have?
I think I have to elaborate a bit. I think when you reach your ultimate stage, we call it to be soul conscious.
Right.
You are in the stage of being immortal and pure light. You have incredible potential to influence the physical reality. That comes a little bit into quantum physics and mind-matter interaction. There's a lot of research going on right now how our mind is actually shaping all the time the world around us. And some scientists are saying whatever you see outside, there's a reflection what happens on the inside. So I'm very much fascinated by this mind-matter interaction, and I believe, it's my understanding, when I reach this stage of being complete, pure, silent, I am a master of the physical realm around me, and I can sort of help a transition to a better world in a very profound way. So that's a bit the superpower. Maybe you call it pure soul consciousness or
No, but that's pretty powerful actually. Everybody starts appreciating we being a soul, not being body conscious, will bring so many of the benefits which you were alluding towards earlier, saying that you become more responsible, accountable for others and nature and everything put together. So dot and target for that. Okay. Most rejuvenating natural place which you visited?
most rejuvenating natural place. I had the luck and the chance to be at many powerful places. And in the world, there are always, energy crossings, special wells, special meditation rooms, special temples, special churches. My most favorite place is the meditation hall in the Brahma Kumaris in Mount Abu. It's called History Hall. I go every evening there for meditation. I believe it's a space gate to the higher reality, and I have fantastic meditation experiences there. But I've seen and I experienced many many special places around the world. Often they are connected also to water. There are special springs. Holy water comes out there, and you drink it, and you feel excited. You can feel how everything wakes up in your body. So I've seen many of these kind of places. But as I said, the room, meditation hall, history hall in Brahma Kumaris is my most exciting place.
Fantastic. So this brings us to the end of our discussions. I'd like to thank you from the bottom of my heart. Golo, I think this has been one of a very different conversation which I've had amongst my entire video podcast series which are there. It touches on some very core fundamental values of individuals for us as humans, and the kind of impact positive which we can create and do some of the negative impact we've done in the past. So really thank you for joining us, sharing your learnings and nuggets with us. And I'd like to wish you all the very best. I know your United Nations upcoming climate conference is happening in Brazil this time, right?
Yeah, it's in Belém.
Belém.
And we just had this morning a Zoom meeting. Many more will follow with our environmental team.
Right.
We are planning our accommodation, which is not easy because everything is a bit late in Belém and there's not enough accommodation, so prices are skyrocketing.
Okay.
We're planning our strategy and what we are promoting, and
Right.
We're promoting also a vegetarian or vegan diet, for example, plastic-free lifestyle, clean lifestyle, renewable energy. So we're sort of discussing what is our best strategy.
Right.
And then, of course, we have to also see how we interact with the community there. And the speciality of this coming up climate conference is that the Brazilian government wants a big involvement and participation of the indigenous people. There will be also a civil society forum being parallel for 4 days, parallel to the actual conference. And so we're looking now how we can interact and where we find partners for collaboration, for exchange, and for creating that momentum that inspires all the negotiators and all the politicians which come to this conference for greatness, and to wake up to this crisis, which is a hidden chance for us all humans to raise to really greatness and to a perfection and to love and compassion towards the world.
Absolutely. Thank you once again and all the very best for that. And friends, for more such sessions, inspiring conversations, please keep listening to Beyond Success, Unleash the New You video podcast series.